9 European monarchs pose for a photograph at the funeral of King Edward VII of the United Kingdom on the 20th of May 1910. It was the largest gathering of European royalty ever to take place. Girls making petrol bombs during the Battle of the Bogside Island, 1969. The discovery of the statue of Antinous, Delphi, Greece, 1894. The morning after the First Battle of Passchendaele, 12th October 1917. Fall of Berlin Wall, 9th November 1989. Hamburg after 4 Allied firebombing raids in July 1943, which killed an estimated 50,000 people. Neuf-Brisach in Alsace, France, a fully 360-degree fortified town from the Napoleonic Wars. Finnish trade unions pay tribute to martyrs of the labor movement in front of the Helsinki Cathedral on May Day, 1971. Eat more cottage cheese, 1918. A chador-clad militiawoman, armed with a Uzi submachine gun, controls a demonstration against Iraq. The poster reads, "Yesterday's friends, today's enemies." Taken by Abbas Attar in Tehran, Iran, June 1979. Coal mine in Ukraine, 1970. On this day in 1908, the youngest martyred freedom fighter Khudiram Bose, 18, was murdered by the British Raj. Looting during the 1977 blackout, New York. Comparison of the Aral Sea, Uzbekistan, between 1985 and 2017. Cristo Redentor, aka Christ the Redeemer, under construction, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 1931. Mahatma Gandhi and Jinnah in 1939. Peace strength of the great powers. Infographic from the Daily Mail, World War I. Ottoman officials surrender the city of Jerusalem to the British, 1917. In 1968, during a period called the Prague Spring, Alexander Dubček, the newly elected leader of Czechoslovakia, enacted pro-democracy reforms that loosened state control and expanded individual rights, giving hope to Czech citizens and angering the Soviet Union. Soviet leaders in Moscow believed that Czechoslovakia, a member of the Warsaw Pact, had gone too far and summoned Czech leaders for discussions. By late summer, the talks were not going the way the Kremlin had wanted, so more than 2,000 tanks and thousands more Warsaw Pact troops were sent to invade and occupy the country on August 21st. In the first weeks, occupying soldiers were met with protests and limited resistance, and more than 70 civilians were killed in the conflicts. Within the following year, resistance faded. Dubček was removed from office, his reforms were undone, and a more Soviet-controlled government was installed. Photos of these days, description under the photo, January 19th. Prague residents surround Soviet tanks in front of the Czechoslovak radio building in central Prague during the first day of the Soviet-led invasion of Czechoslovakia on August 21st, 1968. A shadowy figure watches Soviet tanks advance through the streets of Prague after nightfall in August 1968. Prague residents ride on top of a Soviet army tank rolling down Wenceslas Square in central Prague during the first day of the Soviet-led invasion on August 21st, 1968. The banner reads, "Entry forbidden to unauthorized personnel." Prague residents, carrying a Czechoslovakian flag and throwing Molotov cocktails, attempt to stop a Soviet tank in downtown Prague on August 21st, 1968. A barricade made from trucks and buses burns in front of the Czechoslovak radio building in central Prague on August 21st, 1968. Soviet army soldiers sit on their tanks in front of the Czechoslovak radio building in central Prague on August 21st, 1968. A bus driver tries to help some of the first victims of the Soviet-led invasion during clashes in front of the Czechoslovak radio headquarters in central Prague on August 21st, 1968. Students in the underground movement make anti-Russian posters on September 3rd, 1968 in Prague. A young Czech lets her feelings be known as she shouts at Soviet soldiers sitting on tanks in the streets of Prague on August 26, 1968. Thousands of protesters sit in Wenceslas Square in downtown Prague on August 24, 1968, demonstrating against the Soviet invasion. A lone car passes dozens of Soviet tanks during the 1968 invasion of Czechoslovakia. Thousands of protesters crowd into Wenceslas Square in downtown Prague in August 1968, demonstrating against the Soviet invasion. Czechoslovakian army trucks take young people around Prague as Soviet tanks had halted on the outskirts of town and began a siege of Czech army barracks. The passengers waved Czechoslovakian national flags and chanted national songs and patriotic slogans. An elderly man sits on the pile of rubble which was once his home, following a V-1 flying bomb strike in Upper Norwood, London, July 1944. He had been out for a walk as his wife prepared the Sunday lunch and returned to find that his house had been destroyed and his wife killed. The last known picture of Adolf Hitler, April 30th, 1945. The house that Donald Trump couldn't buy, New Jersey, 1991. The first photo of Earth from the Moon was taken on August 23, 1966. Image, NASA